we can get caught up just checking boxes, moving people. And that preoccupation is dangerous because we're trying to fight things like white supremacy and all these things that we have a natural complacency with. And so if we're not careful, we're like, Robyn Lee runs a really good program. Like we're doing the good work, even if we aren't. We can feel good about ourselves when we do not deserve to. So this is the core for me. Sorry, I know it looks good, but it's so warm over here. It's like a blanket. I think it'll wash fine. So this is the core. This is what I want us to think about. Oh, well, we told you there are tech issues. Okay, we're gonna go through 5 questions. The first one is in the ether. Question number 1 is, how has your EDI program helped to reallocate power to marginalized people? How has your EDI program helped to reallocate power to marginalized people? Because that's it. That's the, I won't we go more. Question number 2, how does your organization's code of conduct support you as an ally, advocate, or self-advocate? Someone's given that real big eyes, and I thank you. That's the perfect look. Now I know we don't say code of conduct a lot, but why that's beautiful to me is code of conduct, I hear policy, but I also hear the actual living practice in your organization. And I'll give you an example. Thank you for the head nods. Yeah. Like we have always had a policy that we are a scent-free organization in my office. We only started living it in our culture when it became a bit of an issue and people we really respected started posting the signs reminding us that we were scent-free. Then it was both policy and practice. So how does your code of conduct support you as an ally, advocate, or self-advocate? Question 3, this is very leading. What are the KPIs in your EDI plan? Are your deliverables concrete? Yeah, I'm presuming you should have a plan. If I could turn back time on my program, I started an equity plan, and my equity community was like, girl, we asked for that like over a year ago. Your government, it's going to take you 1,500 years. We do not care about that plan. They didn't know I had it all ready. I was so ready. They were really skeptical, so I didn't launch it. But if I could turn back time, one of my learned lessons is I would have that plan. Chris, you wanted me to break down KPI in case people aren't familiar with that. I think it's key performance indicator. Great, thank you. What are the KPIs in your plan, and are your deliverables concrete? Why? Dr. Rola Abihana. Rola works for the Public Service Commission, and when I did my sad Black Girl tour, because I got a little lost working for government and community, it's really hard. She's one of the people who brought me in and mentored me, and she was like, listen, the system, whatever system you're in, we're in a system, Canada is a system, the province is a system, the place you work is a system, our cultures come together to form systems. The system is designed to hold us back, to hold us down. The only way to stop being run in circles by the system is by having a plan. So that's why I'm like, where's your plan? If your program is faltering, where's your plan? And I will add, plans give us hope. I think one of the reasons EDI can falter is because we think it's based on our feelings. Tragedy is discovered, like it's on short day tomorrow, right? Like families, we have to do something. It's out of that feeling. We need a plan that keeps us accountable when our feelings aren't at the fore. That lets our equity people in our organizations have a little bit more faith and hope over time. Don't expect too much of us right away. Ooh, I was grumpy when I first got this job because I'd been really hurt. We need a plan. Your organization needs a plan. I think the diversity, they didn't ask me to do this. I'm pretty sure Den will do one for you. I think that's a service they provide. They're great consultants in this province. Veronica speaking next, she helps with plans. Question number 4, what mechanisms for feedback does your organization have? And are any of those mechanisms anonymous? How do you know the level of your organization? You might think you're anti-racist, but you haven't noticed that 4 of your Black girls have quit. They're like, yeah, we're diverse, but we also the Black girls, well, they were grumpy. You need a mechanism for feedback. Exit interviews, surveys, a couple of good examples. Number 5. We'll come back to this one. How do leaders in your organization react when they are called out? How do you react when you're called out? I have looked educated, caring, thoughtful leaders in the eye who cared about me and said, what happened back there was racist. I was really harmed. They didn't have the capacity. They didn't have the capacity to react in a way that didn't traumatize me further. They didn't have the capacity to change policy, to self-reflect. I was squeezed out, gone. And you'll know you can't just ask what your leaders should ask, but you too. Number 6, how does your organization make time and space for relationship growth and learning? All that stuff I'm doing at Build, one of the things we are doing well is I'm giving the time and space, and even the time and space to fail. Like we're not like, well, it's all gonna be building relationships with equity communities and government. That's gonna be easy, right? Robyn? Like, no, like they're giving me the time and space because that's what it takes. Number 7, I love this one. I wrote them all, except for one was my remark. How does your organization, individually, culturally, and through policy, center the needs and experiences of marginalized people? Who's at the center of our policies? We're going to talk a lot about centering, that's the bulk, so we'll get back to this. Number 8, what is your organization's plan for the future? And how are marginalized voices engaged and leading this plan? Okay, that's it. That's our 8 questions. Thank you for taking notes. You really made me believe in them. Believe that they would be useful to other people and not just to me. That's supposed to be blank. We're going to do a little shift now. It's going to be, there's a little activity. It's going to be quick. I just want to say, when I think about where EDI is faltering, where people are trying their best and there's like a foundational piece they don't understand, sometimes I get really shocked about how people don't understand who has power in a room. And if you don't know who has power in a room and how that impacts your responsibilities, your responsibility as a leader, for example, you shouldn't be doing the work yet. Get into the work, learn about power. You're just gonna hurt people. Okay, that was bold. I didn't mean to say that, but it's true. Okay. I've got the power. Okay, we're just gonna do a few quick examples to see if we can start to think about who has power in a space. So I'm here, you see me, Robyn Lee, I have 3 bosses. One of them is here, Christy Jones, there she is with her beautiful white hair, new cut. New haircut, but also new cut of that song. Christy and I have a confrontation. Who has the power between us? Everyone's pointing to Chrissy. Why does Chrissy have the power? She's the boss. She technically, formally has power. She can throw me out. I'm not in a union. That's right. Any other reasons Chrissy might have power?
She's white.
She's white. Yeah, that's right. She's white. And?
She's got a group of folks as well, I would assume, to support her. So if something goes wrong with a relationship, she can rely on maybe a leadership team to also back her.
That's right. That's very astute. Great work. Because she's been in government for like 14 years, because she's made her way up a high chain, she has allies. Yeah. I'm in 2 years. Man, I make allies fast. But I might not have the allies. But here's the thing about allies. There are allies and then there are allies, because there's this whole extra education piece I need to do with people, because they will be my ally until racism hit the fan. And they're like, oh, why are you so angry? Oh, but she's a really nice person. I know. Right. So yes, these are some of the reasons she has the power. That was great. I feel like we can move on from this one. Chrissy, I feel like they got it in. Yeah, she's so happy. She's gonna cry. I didn't know if I had time to do this this presentation, and she cried. and made me do it. So here we are. I also can't say no to Claudia Bowers. She's so tiny and so bossy. Like quiet bossy, she's the best. Do you know that woman has been Claudia, wait for this. Do you know that she has been the first woman and the first person of color in many executive level rooms in South Africa post-apartheid? Yeah, yeah. Wait, what did I say? Go get some support from Den. Yeah, go work with Claudia. Also, when she says, I think you have so much to say, you're fine. I guess I have to trust you because you're brilliant. Okay, here is the bread and butter. Here's the meat of it. This is the turkey dinner. We're going to talk about centering. I think this is a core piece of what we need to understand if we're doing EDI work well, if we're shifting power, right? Transformational work. How do we encounter the norm? That's what I mean by centering. So let's explore how the norm, the social norm is created. I'll give you a spoiler. You know, my last name is Seale, and it's well named because I'm like a whiskery kind of girl. I was like, well, we got a big presentation tomorrow. Get out the tweezers. I'm in the hotel. There's like a big mirror with light, and there's other, you pull it over. And I pulled it over, and I couldn't angle it right. And I said out loud, who is this made for? Oh, it's made for people who shave. I was like, well, look at you, your one moment where the built environment isn't for your body, right? It's because the body that's centered isn't mine. But I was thinking like, if I were shorter, if I were in a wheelchair, totally not made for me, right? So the norm, that might have been distracting. Let's explore how the center is created. The norm is created by who centered. So I Googled rom-com, because that's fun, and best rom-coms or something. And this is one of the pictures that came up. So who do we see centered? Who do rom-coms center? Romantic comedies.
Heterosexual white.
Heterosexual white people, and yeah, yes, exactly. Anything else?
Able-bodied.
Able-bodied, yes. They're thin too. Yeah. Anything else?
Usually neurotypical as well.
Yeah, that's right. Usually neurotypical. There's another example of it. So when we talk about romance, when we talk about what love is and who deserves it, what bodies we deserve to see, what experiences we deserve to see having those experiences, they're white, straight, cisgendered, thin, able-bodied, neurotypical people. We got Hitch, we got Jennifer Lopez. You know, I had a Christmas movie themed birthday in December, and two of my friends tried to come as Queen Latifah from The Holiday. Yeah, right. I mean, great choice right off the bat, but also neither of them were black. I just said there's so few without tiny bodies that that's who they connected to, right? Okay, and then I was like superheroes, because you know that's what we've been doing for the last 20 years, superhero movies. I said typed in something like best superheroes, and this stupid graphic came up. There's no Black Panther. It's insane. Sorry, it's rude. Who are the superheroes? White men. That's right. Oh, we got some really skinny girls to go with the white men. I know we have some black superheroes. I know that there was infamously like one Indigenous X-Men who got killed off in like three, what are those comics? Yeah. It is so centered on white men, right? Are there any gay superheroes?
The closet.
Out of the closet. There's one. I forget. There's one, right? Last time I did this, someone was like, "There's one." They were too excited. I was like, "No, that's not enough." Right? Why is this important? Well, because we're talking about who to go to in a crisis. When we think of like who's going to save us, we're not thinking of this little girl. I'm not thinking of any beautiful black men in the room. No. Here we are, right? Who we trust. Then I Googled best action heroes of all time. I don't know what I was thinking. And clearly this was from a magazine, I think, for people 55 and over. Look at these guys. Yes, these are the action heroes. We've got one guy, a black guy, another person of color. It's, you know, again and again, who's saving the day? It's white men. Why am I talking about this? Well, another way to think about centering is to consider whose story is told again and again until it becomes the norm. It's the normal body that we build things on. It's a normal body that medical procedures are about. You know, my friend, we saw Lamella Ajuan in the construction site in our glamour shot. Her dad was doing, he's a doctor, he's Nigerian originally, he's Canadian. He was doing a program on dermatology, and he was like, Lamella, I don't know if I'm going to be able to identify these diseases and disorders on Black skin, on skin like ours, because they don't teach it. And when there is, they have one book that's almost all Black skin, melanated skin. They were like, why are you doing all those marks for us in this book? Because we never even ask, why are they all white? We have to get trained to ask that question, right? Okay, centering is whose story is told again and again until it becomes the norm. Okay, but now we're gonna talk about a real hero, my girl. Yes, Uhura. There she is. So we're doing original Star Trek here. This is Uhura. This is the 1960s, right? So in the 1960s, we're post World War II by like 20 years. We're in the Cold War. Gene Roddenberry was like, well, what we're gonna do, of course, we're gonna have a white guy in the center. We all know he's a Jewish Canadian man, so that's, you know, nice. We're gonna have a Russian, a Japanese man, who's not in this picture, sorry. Bones, we're gonna have a Black woman right there and an alien. This is the future, right? Why is this important? Who thinks this is important? I'm gonna tell you who thought this was important. Maybe people know this story, Nichelle Nichols. She's a dancer, she was a dancer. She was like, I am a little tired of Star Trek. I might leave, call Gene Roddenberry, Gene. Don't think of doing another season. He said, please don't leave, Nichelle, please don't. Take the weekend to think on it. She's telling a reporter years later, right? She's like, okay, Gene, I'll think on it. Fabulous self, takes herself off to some kind of sci-fi thing. You're nodding like you know the story, it's so good, right? So she's at the sci-fi convention kind of thing, and one of the organizers comes up to her. Picture Claudia coming up to you, hey, Nichelle, someone's here, he's a really big fan, he wants to talk to you, can I introduce you? She was like, yeah, sure. In walks Martin Luther King Jr. She said, there he was with that big smile, and he said, yes, it is me. And he said, I love your work. She said, I love your work. He said, no, it's the only show I'll let my kids have to watch. She was like, doctor, I was thinking of leaving the show, actually. Like, I want to be at work marching with you. He said, you can't. You cannot leave that show. It is too important that we see you, a Black woman, in that space. It is too important. It's more important than coming out to march with me. So she stayed for all those fabulous movies too. Why did Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., why was he worried about what Nichelle Williams was doing, or Nichelle was doing in the show? Because who's centered tells us who belongs, who's important, who's competent, who we should trust, and who we protect. That's why he'd let his kids stay up to watch. They needed to see that. We all needed to see that. Centering is where we place focus and priorities. It's whose stories we tell and whose stories it determines, it informs whose stories we choose to believe. It's kind of know about centering if you're doing EDI work. I was asking myself, okay, so representation is important. When is it enough? You know, normally I'd have had a picture of Discovery, that beautiful Black actress. It's her show. She's in the center now. And yes, when racism gets really bad, sometimes it's the only one I can watch. When is it enough? Like, when are we done? When we've had enough. You know, here's what I'm thinking. Do you remember I Love Lucy? There was a period in time when you could only show married couples in their bedroom if they had separate beds. Oh, we're not putting them in bed together. That would be scandalous, right? Then we moved into the 90s. Mr. Big, oh, it's exciting, they're in bed together. Still, I think in the 90s, there's still that little rush, like, woo, it's happening. You know, Chandler and Monica in bed together. And the reason I can tell, I asked some people who remember, but also if you look at Friends pictures, they're always in bed together, man. Like, they're like the promo pictures they did, because I think there was still that little bit of edge to showing people in bed together on a screen in the 90s. 2023. when is the last time you watched a TV show and were like, I think that married couple's in a bed together. Well, oh, they're in a bed together. Like, when's the last time you clocked it as worth noting, as noteworthy, as exceptional? That's when the norm has shifted. So if we see a superhero movie and we don't think, like when we're watching a superhero movie, say, we're like, oh, a gay superhero, norm hasn't shifted. An Indigenous romantic lead, norm hasn't shifted. It's when that isn't the thought that we can think the norm has, the center has really started to shift. It doesn't mean we can let up, but that's when we know it. That's my thinking. So, 1 minute. Thank you. Really quickly, I think this is important. How does it feel to be centered? Or to not be centered, or to not be when you usually are? Little Robyn Lee in grad school in the USA, finding out she really was Black, watches this movie, and 3 days later is like doing her hair and looking so fly, and just, I was like, 3 days in, I was like, why do I look so beautiful this week? Why do I feel so good? And finally I was like, oh, because you watched a movie where all these beautiful Black people around a girl who looked like you, a light-skinned Black girl, this is what representation does. 3 days. You should have seen how high my shoes were. I saw this, I mentioned this to a white friend years ago, or years later, this white woman, I was like, is this what white people feel like all the time? And she took me by the shoulders and she shook me. She said, yes, it is, and you deserve it too. Yes, you need representation to feel like when the center shifts toward you, ooh. Same Robyn Lee, same school experience. Oh, day after Valentine's Day, walk into the room where we all hang out and it says roses are red. Gender is performative. Mass market romance is heteronormative. Well, I tell you that's true, and I agree with that. But little Robyn Lee, who not really experienced not being centered as a straight woman, it's like someone had kicked my puppy. I was like, why are they attacking me by writing this on my whiteboard? Like, I called my queer best friend and said, Meg, I just read this. I know I was a bad person, I didn't know. Meg, I just read this. I'm so upset. Like, I drove down to see you on Valentine's Day because you left your wife of 15 years. And while I was driving down there, Tim, the driver, told me he was bisexual, came out to me. How do I feel attacked? I wasn't being attacked. I was so used to being a straight woman centered, the whole world built around telling you that was good and fine and the way it should be, that this little hint, the way I was doing things wasn't right, was like an attack. And so when we ask, how do leaders in your organization react when they are called out? How do you react? What I'm asking is, how do they react to that feeling? In my team, I've got 3 bosses. I only get to talk about 2. The third is the best one we have talked about. We have an agreement about the puddle and the cliff. So if I'm talking to Nick, and I have to say something about race, I understand that I'm asking him to stand in a puddle. He's white, Nick's white. It sucks, right? Like, no one wants to stand in puddles. He's not in rain boots. He's in like nice, whatever engineers wear on their feet. I don't know. It's like, it's getting muddy. It's soaking through. He's like, I don't want athlete's foot. These shoes are nice. He's standing in a puddle. The alternative to Nick standing in that puddle while we talk about race is I go off a cliff. Because while that conversation is uncomfortable for him, it might make his ego hurt a little bit, his idea that he's a good person. I'm at risk of trauma and harm, right? And we don't know how deep that cliff is, but we know it's not going to be nice. And so we understand when we talk about race, he's in a puddle or I'm off a cliff. So he is willing to stand in the puddle of how this feels to not be centered. And we're talking about race because that's my management experience, but it's not just race, this principle. Okay. The slides got weird on me. That's why, okay. So I'll end with this, let's do a quick summary. EDI work, if it's not about shifting power, might just be a distraction, and that might be why you're faltering. You need a plan that gets you back to that center. This is my question to take away. This is a big one, but I think it's really important. Veronica, who speaks next, will be very proud of me. In the broadest social context, do we hear voices claiming to be attacked when they are the powerful party? Yeah, you're fake. Yes, you're perfect. Yes. Yeah. We have to get so clear on who has social power and formal power, because people with social power, nothing holds them back from pretending to be attacked. We had a march last week in Sydney. It was, get your gender ideology out of our schools. Well, first of all gender is ideological. So use your language better. They don't want that. That's not the point though, right? It's manipulative. But I'm also hearing people acting as if they're the ones being attacked. I'm going to tell you, as a cisgendered straight woman, if we were kids in a playground, I'm a big kid. Trans folks and gender minorities are the kids, the little kids. They don't hold that power. So if I'm walking around like, little Timmy was bullying me when I'm like a 6-foot overgrown kid, it's yes. So when we think about centering, we have to think about it on all these levels, including this one. I don't know if we have any time for questions, but thank you for listening. Thank you online. And if we have any questions, yeah. No, that wasn't the context, and the 10% existed before I came in. Christy might know a little bit more about it. You can answer if you know the answer.
It was a collective agreement between community, government, and the trades, so construction sector council. And initially it was like 10% not very much, like come on. And when it was broached to community, one of the things that their feeling was, well, if you're finally going to do something, let's make sure it's going to be successful. So we can keep knocking it up. We can always add. The last thing we want is you to be able to come back and say, oh, well, we tried and we didn't reach our goals. So we set it there, and yes, and it's been reached, and we're going for it. But yeah, community agreement.
Great question. It was one of my first questions on the first day of the job. I don't think I absorbed the answer first day on jobs. Any other questions? Yeah.
I don't have a question, but rather.
Jonah, online, I hope you can see that.
Yeah,
Or the records, okay.
yeah, I think this for me is a takeaway as centering, but also relating it to socialization.
Mhm.
The quote you shared where the system is designed to hold us back.
Mhm.
I think of friends who've had to straighten their hair, people
Yes.
who've moved to this country and tried to assimilate because the worst, I think everyone in this room has been in a situation where you felt excluded
Mhm.
and you don't want to be in that. So just, again, doing maybe more self-reflection around just like centering, but also in situations where I've never gone into a building and not be able to access it. How do I decenter myself, or in the work that I do? How, like that's for me the biggest takeaway of when do you send, because there are certain instances where I have first voice, but then there are instances where I don't, and how to infuse that. And maybe that's a conversation for later, but I just wanted to reflect what
I think that's really beautiful and helpful. So one of the centering examples that's so natural to me is I remember being in a meeting, my hair doesn't even get that big. And I was like, well, damn, I wish they told me this was such an important meeting. I would have had less black hair. Why? Because that's not what's centered, right? So even when you're so going into spaces that are so starkly white means that you're always having that feeling of like not quite fitting. And I'll just say one of the biggest things, one of the most interesting parts of the program we're building is sometimes it's really hard once you have lived in that feeling and no one is listening to then take a breath and listen to another group that's like, yeah, but my thing. You're like, well, why that? Okay. And then if you're in government, you're trying to listen to everyone, and they are so not, equity has so many reasons not to believe us. So that one of the things I heard is how do I consider other people's thing, and just asking the question, I think is probably well underway.
And yeah, and just to build on that, I think what made the Black Lives Matter movement quite impactful is that they named everything. So they're like, we're here not just for Black, but people who are Black but are queer, people who are Black and disabled, people who are Black and women. Like, like kind of like everyone was a part of that. And I think a lot of times people choose one identity marker and forget a lot of other things and not consider. And yeah, I don't have the right answer, like how we would move forward or how we do the centering and all that.
Yeah.
But I thought when you introduced the concept, it was like, that was my
Thank you. And like, I think, yeah, exactly. There was a lot of pressure on us to just have one identity. And it's been getting really pointed. You have to be Black and then you can be queer. Like that's been a narrative that's happening, right? It's harmful and wrong. So thinking about when I'm centered and then all of the ways that I'm not centered, how you're centered, when that happens, it's uncomfortable, but it's exactly right. Yeah, thank you. I think I had something smarter to say and I lost it, that's fine. Any other questions? He's doing all that, Jonah's doing all the good work over here, it's fine. Yes. Oh, yes, I want to get your question, but yeah, what we have to do is ask ourselves, what if yes, I'm in a marginalized group, but now that we're only in a room full of this marginalized group, could I be the one with the most power? So like, yes, women face discrimination, sexism, but when we're in a room together, if you're a white woman, you are now the most privileged person in that room. So what you gotta do is be like, all right, Black girls, okay, Indigenous girls, neurodivergent, all the other things. And every one of us has to do that with our identities, right? Yes. Thank you. Yeah, you had the great point earlier.
This is a great comment to go with my question, so thanks for the lead out. But so we belong to an action group and at our workforce, and it's a federal government thing, but how can we as white women in the room be disruptive and create a sense of, I don't know, it's okay to be discomforted in these conversations. And move it on from just being defensive to being like, I don't know, almost teaching people how to self-regulate as grown-ups.
No, that's great, because it's a whole job, right? I actually want to ask Chrissy, because she's the queen of this. She is the reigning empress. She's your reigning empress. You haven't met her yet. Chrissy Jones, one of the white girls, and disruptive. Have you listened to Brene Brown's podcast that she with IPO about the So like she talks about, so this isn't new to you, but I go talk and Brene talk about action bias. So what happens when we hit that discomfort, this isn't even just EDI, we're like, get me the hell out of this discomfort. So the goal, you're not like naturally, let me sit in this discomfort, let me sit in this puddle. It's like, let me get through it. And you might get through it in a lot of ways. You might be like, someone said that to you, well, how am I gonna, I'm gonna get them, right? So I think we are teaching ourselves how to self-regulate as adults. That was beautifully said. What I know Chrissy's great at is not being afraid to disrupt, being really direct. When she came on as my boss, I was so skeptical, I was so shut down. She was like, I will put my white body in front of anything I need to for you, you beautiful Black woman. And she goes into meeting with my two white dude bosses. One of them is like this tiny Cape Breton man named Roy McDonald, ready for retirement. Loves me. She's like, she's my legacy. But didn't know even my best friend of the organization. And so she'll interrupt the engineer in charge of $1 billion of work and whatever Roy's saying. She's like, and look at our beautiful, brilliant Black woman, Robyn Lee, bringing her, right? Robyn Lee, I just want to throw those experiences. Like what she does is be weird. Like just a little edgy, little pushy. Seen her stand up in front of people. There's a wonderful man. He just led like something on, he had us all watch his videos 1 minute on Truth and Reconciliation Today, spontaneously as a leader. He's like, get in here. They were beautiful. He had nothing. Earlier, it might have been that day, a couple years ago, he kept saying soft skills instead of leadership skills. And she's like really clear that that's an equity issue. So he said soft skills. She interrupted. You mean leadership skills? Soft, interrupted. The third time. So this is why she's a queen. She came and she stood in front of him and looked at the whole room and said, leadership skills. And then she moved to the side, but stayed in front. So he knew if he was going to mess up, Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Is that it?
Thank you.
You should talk to
everyone.
Christy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.